you everybody for I'm sure you all heard that. So we're going to be recording the training and we will be sending a follow-up email tomorrow, which will include the link. And so then the folks that aren't able to be here today, they can also look at the recording. So I will start and then I will have some of my colleagues introduce themselves and then we will start the training. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk about how you can make your voice heard during the August Congressional recess. But before we start, I will introduce myself and then I will have my colleagues Ursala and Justin do the same. So my name is Jessica Bahena and I am the National Field Organizer at FCNL. I joined the team about a year ago and I'm just so delighted to be here with all of you to continue elevating our voices during the month of August and beyond. So I will pass it over to Ursala.
Thank you so much. My name is Ursala Knudsen-Latta, and I'm Legislative Director for Peacebuilding Policy here at the Friends Committee on National Legislation. And so I lead all of our peacebuilding work, and I'm very excited to talk about it today. And it's also great to see, I see there's a couple advocacy team members, so it's great to see them here as well. And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Justin.
Hello, everyone. Great to see people. I saw some friends from Hawaii, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Illinois. I'm seeing people from all over, which is really great. If you care about peace and peace building, you're in the right place. So I have a feeling you're all in the right place. And I see Deb Hale over there, our fearless field committee clerk. So great to see so many different people from and people we don't know. So if this is your first interaction with us, welcome. My name's Justin and I work with Jessica and Ursula here at FCNL, supporting so many advocates like all of you to take action. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica.
Thank you, Justin. And since I haven't had the pleasure to meet all of you in person yet, I'm still a year in. I want to know who is here in this virtual space. So if we can take a minute and just, maybe drop your name in the chat box, where you're calling from, and one word that describes how you're feeling today. So you can either use the chat box or unmute yourself, and we will just take 1 minute just to see who is in the room today. And I know Justin said and Ursula said she recognized a lot of folks. Okay, hi, Chris from California.
Hey, I'm Barbara. I'm here in Florida. Good to see everybody.
Hi, Barbara.
Bill Roch in Chicago.
Chicago.
Aaron Rochelle.
Hello, I'm
Atlanta.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello, I'm Paul from Ohio.
Hi, Paul.
Bob Ward from Oregon.
Hi, Bob.
Sally from Vermont.
Hi, Sally.
Ravenna from Wisconsin.
Hi, Ravenna. We'll have a couple more, and I know the chat box also. Rita from Colorado and from Arizona.
Ben Bloom from Columbus, Ohio.
Hi, Ben. Jerry, you want to unmute yourself?
I could. I'm Doreen. I'm in Philadelphia. I'm wilted because it's 100,000 degrees here.
Yeah.
Stay hydrated.
And I'm Jerry from Orinda, California.
Perfect.
Now I'm doing.
I'm sorry about it. Yeah, I'm Chisoni from Silver Spring, Maryland, DC metro area. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, keep writing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Eric Hansen, Media, Pennsylvania.
Hi, Eric. Awesome. Well, this is such a great turnout. Thank you all for participating. But I also want to know about your advocacy experience. So I'm going to ask you all a couple questions And you can either answer them by inserting your answer in the chat box or raising your virtual hand, or using some of the reaction icons located at the bottom of your screen. So the first question is, have you ever taken any action with FCNL before? Raise your hand, or you can also answer by, okay, I see a couple. Okay. Oh, I love to see all these hands. Okay, this is great. All right, the second question is, have you sent an email or written a letter to your legislator before?
There you go. Now we got.
Yes.
Wow, this is awesome.
See your pictures down there?
Oh, yeah.
And I see if you can mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. All right.
Ricky, you are muted. I unmuted you. Say,
I have, this is Ben Bloom from Columbus, Ohio. I have done all of the above.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate your advocacy. All right. And the last question is, how many of you have participated during one of our August Congressional Recess campaigns? Okay, a few. Okay, all right. Well, this is great. This is great to see. Well, thank you everyone for participating. If you have any questions throughout the training, please feel free to use the chat box and we will get to it in a couple minutes. However, we will also leave time at the end of the training to answer any questions or concerns that you might have. So tonight we will talk about how to capture the moment during the August congressional recess by focusing on strategies that we can implement to maximize our advocacy efforts. So our goal for this training is to provide the tools and support to elevate our voices during the August congressional recess and beyond. So during the recess, this is a great opportunity for us to engage our legislators while they are back in their hometown. So your legislators will be in their local communities from August 1st to August 31st. So this is a great opportunity to drop by their office, engage with them, educate them about investing in peace building. And you can also schedule a meeting to lobby them essentially. So
we in Columbus, Ohio, are having two meetings tomorrow and Thursday. Tomorrow we're meeting with Sherrod Brown, and on Thursday we're meeting with Joyce Beatty.
wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. You were able to schedule these meetings ahead of time. That's amazing. Thank you. So if you've done this before, this is great. This is another opportunity for you to further engage your member of Congress, maybe on an issue that you haven't advocated before. So we really do appreciate everybody's time, your advocacy. And with that, I will pass it over to Ursala, and she will go more into detail on the legislative ask. And again, if you all have any questions, please feel free to put that in the chat box, and then we will answer them as we go. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I think this is going to be a little bit of a review for all of the advocacy team members that have joined today's call. But hopefully you'll still be able to learn some exciting stuff. So as part of our advocacy team, as part of our August recess campaign this year, we're talking about peace building funding. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is peace building, going to talk to you about our ask, and then I'm going to talk about why it is so urgent right now that we're doing this and why I am so excited that we have nearly 100 people on this call from all across the country here excited to talk to their members about peace building. So first, what is peace building? I think we all intuitively, when we hear the word peace building, we think it's building peace. But I just wanted to flag, peace building is not a single activity. It's not a single, it's dialogue, or it is, media campaigns. Peace building can mean a huge number of different kinds of activities, but really what it's trying to do at its core is get at what are those root causes, what is creating violent conflict, and how can we resolve it non-violently? How can we look at resolving injustices, look at oppression and marginalization and inequality and all of these things that really build grievances, that create the drivers and create plant the seeds of violence in communities. And how can we get at the root of that to address it in a non-violent, peaceful way? As Quakers, FCNL is called to seek peace and pursue it. And peace building is really a way of doing that around the world. So what is our ask as part of this campaign? This year, we are asking during the August recess for you guys to talk to your members of Congress and urge them to support robust funding for peace building in the fiscal year 2024 State Foreign Ops Bill. All of this will be shared in a written document after the call. So I know that this is kind of a long request, but you'll be getting this all in writing shortly. Specifically, when we say support peace building in the federal budget, we mean give $25 million to the work of atrocity prevention, $66 million to the Complex Crises Fund, and $40 million for reconciliation programs. What does that mean? What are these accounts? What are these three accounts going to do? So first, on atrocities prevention is the only funding dedicated solely to the prevention of mass atrocities and genocide in the federal budget. This money is absolutely critical for the work that peace builders do around the world to try and prevent mass atrocities and genocide. It supports the brand new strategy. Late last year, they released the strategy to anticipate, prevent, and respond to atrocities. And so we're asking for $25 million. And that's really going to enable the State Department to much better meet the need globally, but also match the ambition of this new strategy. So we are asking for $25 million for atrocities prevention. We are also asking for $66 million to the Complex Crisis Fund. The Complex Crisis Fund is super, super important because it enables USAID to act really quickly when there are the emerging signs or signs of escalation of a new conflict. Your average USAID grant can take about a year to go from idea to action on the ground. The Complex Crises Fund can shrink that down to 30 to 90 days. So it is a really quick, fast-acting response tool that allows the United States government to support local peace builders, to support the work of peace building when we see emergent crises, to fill that kind of immediate short-term gap when we see new things on the horizon that need response. So the Atrocities Prevention Fund, Atrocities Prevention, Complex Crises Fund, they're really trying to do that long-term prevention, that immediate prevention. But then we're also asking for $40 million to reconciliation programs. And reconciliation programs is really critical because it helps heal divided communities. It helps bring different ethnic, religious, political groups together to rebuild that mutual trust, to rebuild relationships. And this can happen, this happens often after a conflict ends to help people come back together. But it's also in a really important way of breaking the cycle so that a new conflict doesn't arise where a past one has happened. So we can bring people back together, address the prejudices, address the distrust that can build up during a violent conflict, and help break that cycle and help communities around the world. So it is $25 million for atrocity prevention, 66 million for complex crises, and 40 for reconciliation programs. But most importantly, it is about investing in peace building. It is about putting more money to the nonviolent, peaceful prevention and response to conflict in the federal budget. And you're probably thinking, why are we talking about this in August? We are on the edge of the end of the fiscal year. The federal government's budget runs October 1st to September 30th. So right now, Congress is locked into debate about how are we going to divide and spend the federal budget for the coming fiscal year. These negotiations are happening right now, and we have about 60 days, 2 months, just over 2 months before the fiscal year ends. This is such an important moment for us to be out and talking to our members of Congress and letting them know that we want this to be a central priority in the federal budget this year. There's also been major cuts proposed in the House across the federal budget. So we are seeing that these accounts are under threat. The House Republican proposal that was released last month offers a 50% cut to the Complex Crises Fund rather than an increase that we know that it needs. So it is so important that we are out there and urging our members of Congress to support these accounts, to talk to other appropriators, to talk to their leadership and say, we want the US government invested in peace building around the world through these accounts. So very excited to have all of you on today's call and everyone else that'll be taking part in this campaign. This is such a critical time. This is so urgent, and I really, really appreciate it. So I will stop sharing my screen so we can see each other again. And yeah, open to take questions.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
And I see, Jonathan, your question in the chat. So you're exactly right, Jonathan. Atrocities Prevention is out of the State Department, while USAID runs reconciliation programs and the Complex Crises Fund out of their Center for Conflict and Violence Prevention. Great question.
Ursula?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Eric. This is probably premature, but is there anything that we can do, like come up like with a Marshall Plan as far as what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in Europe, so that as we did at the end of World War II, you know, to help Ukraine get back on its feet with us and our NATO partners?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I see Deb's question in the chat as well. We are not advocating as part of this campaign for specific funds earmarked to Ukraine, but programs like reconciliation programs are going to be really critical for Ukraine's future. As you know, we've seen in Eastern Ukraine, a lot of this conflict, with Russia, obviously, you know, there are likely to be tensions between Ukrainians who speak Russian as their first language and Ukrainians who speak Ukrainian as their first language. There are, you know, religious and ethnic differences in the country. And so by investing enough in programs like the reconciliation programs, we are trying to think about the future and how we can be building peace. FCNL does broadly advocate for support to peace builders and nonviolent resistors in Ukraine, support for humanitarian response and all of these needs in Ukraine. But that's not the specific focus of this year's campaign. We're thinking a little bit more globally, but that's a great question. I saw Chuck had his hand raised.
Yes, I did. I was just wondering, I mean, does it make sense to lobby our representatives in the House as opposed to the Senate people? Because the House, if your representative is a Democrat, I mean, it's pretty much going by the party line and they control the House. So would our time be better spent talking to our senators?
No, our time is best spent talking to everyone.
Okay.
If you can, if you can organize a drop-by visit with all three, that is fantastic. Yes, the House is controlled by the Republicans, but we do need to continue to make our voice heard, whether you have a Democratic or a Republican representative in the House or in the Senate, because these debates, because there's going to be negotiation between the two, they're going to start to look at compromises, and we want to make sure that this is not, you know, discarded in a compromise deal. We want to make sure everyone knows about it. Everyone's supporting these accounts. And
That makes sense.
Yep. And I see the question, I just lost it. How are these linked to the Global Fragility Act from Bob and Corvallis? So the Complex Crises Fund was established as part of, was authorized as part of the Global Fragility Act. So it is linked to the Global Fragility Act. I know many of FCNL's constituents supported that and lobbied on it over the years. Reconciliation programs and atrocities prevention are not directly tied to the Global Fragility Act in the same way, but all of this work is sort of in the working towards similar goals of trying to reduce global fragility to support conflict prevention and support sustainable peace. I see, Bud, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Have you used Marshall Rosenberg's NVC or Compassionate Communication? I'm planning a fund just so we could do a training on that.
Sorry. Yeah, that's a great question. I am not sure if Jessica or Justin, in terms of organizing a future training on those, but those are the kinds of tools that peace builders use when working in these kind of contexts. So yeah, I can't speak to what kind of future trainings we could hold, but thank you for sharing.
I've also been asked to start an advocacy group here in southeastern Connecticut, and I was wondering if this would be a good time to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
I couldn't, but you're cutting off, so I couldn't. Did you hear the question, Ursula? I had a hard time hearing it.
So I've been asked to start an advocacy group here in southeastern Connecticut, and I was wondering if this would be a good time to do that.
Yes, this would be a great time. And my colleague, Sarah, I believe, is on the call and can follow up with you. But yeah, this is an excellent time to be starting that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
So
I did see one last quick question I just wanted to answer in the chat from Julie. So how do we prevent atrocities with $25 million? Well, I would let you know that currently the US government is only spending $6 million. So we are looking to almost quintuple the amount of money we spend on this globally. And it is still pales in comparison to what we could be spending, given the global need, given the number of countries that do have a risk of atrocity. And that's really what we're looking to do. We're looking to step up the global presence on this. And it would not be funding State Department diplomats. What the Atrocities Prevention account supports is peace-building organizations around the world working in communities to help address, as I said, address the drivers, address the root causes that are making the risk of atrocity. So it's not funding sort of diplomatic salaries. It's supporting peace-building groups around the world.
Question?
And you can keep asking questions in the chat, but I think
yes,
Jessica needs to move on.
And I know a lot of you have a lot of questions, in which at the end of the training, We will allow like 10 minutes for you all to ask questions, but we will also be sending an email tomorrow with everything that Ursula mentioned, including a one-pager of talking points that you can use when you lobby your member of Congress or you drop by their office and talk about peace building. So we're going to move along right now, but again, we'll allow some time at the end to ask any further questions that you might have. So right now, I will pass it over to Justin, and he will talk about how to conduct a successful drop-by visit during the August recess.
Yes, thanks, Jessica, and thanks, Ursula. I have the pleasure of not having to get into the policy details. So I know Ursula will keep an eye on the chat, and as Jessica said, there'll be more opportunities later in this call, as well as ability over email to ask some questions and get answers. So I am happy to step back from the policy and talk about action for a few moments. There are a lot of people on this call, as we said at the top, who I know have participated in lobby visits, whether with FCNL or with some other organizations. We, for this campaign in August, are really pushing people and encouraging them to bring in new folks who may not have participated in lobbying before. And I'll be the very first to tell you, it can be a little nerve-wracking to go in and talk about these issues and think that you have to be a policy expert. And for those of you who've lobbied with FCNL before, you don't. And I think on this issue, especially when it comes to advocating for peace building funding, this is a great opportunity to really speak from your values. If you're a person of faith and you tie advocating for peace and funding these important programs, preventing atrocities, things like that, bringing your values, your background. I think we have folks on this call who might have a professional background in some of this work, bringing those stories and the perspective, not just the heavy policy details, into meetings, whether a drop-by visit or a actual scheduled lobby visit, is really what helps to push progress on this issue. When you're meeting with a staffer in a local congressional office, that person, I always like to remind people, they're shopping at the Safeway that you shop at, the Trader Joe's, insert grocery store, regional grocery store here. Their kids go to the same schools. They are people just like you. And they often aren't the policy experts, but they are the people on the ground in your district, whether your representative's office or your senator's office, who are there to hear your concerns, to hear the concerns that you want to raise to your members of Congress. So they will be the people who get that information to the correct policy people. There are some offices where there's an exception, and especially in August, you might get lucky and have the opportunity to, whether at an event or even at the office when you visit, you might see your member of Congress. Go ahead and talk to them. They should know a little bit more about the policy. They oftentimes will bring a staffer with them during these recesses. So you might have an opportunity to speak with a staff person who knows the policy as well. But what we really want to emphasize is in these drop-by meetings is just being prepared to go in for a quick visit. If you get more, think of it as bonus time. And as Jessica and Ursula said, and we mentioned a couple times, keep an eye out for a follow-up email that will have the fact sheet that lists everything that Ursula was discussing. That gets into those policy details that can be shared with the office so it gets to the right policy person. What we recommend is, if you are able, print that out. We also have electronic versions. We're more than happy to make sure you have that link if it's easier to share it with them as a link. Sometimes you might go and the office won't be taking meetings, so you might have to send them an email or make a phone call. What you should do is, once you have your leave behind, your fact sheet, is go to your member of Congress that you want to visit, their website, and find the office that's closest to you. FCNL is working on collecting that information, but it's still a relatively new session of Congress with a lot of new members, and they're still getting their local offices finalized and situated. So for this August recess period, we're encouraging people go to their direct website, and they all list where their office locations are. For your House of Representative legislator, they may only have one or two, depending on the size of the district. The Senate, if you go and visit your senators, they'll likely have several, especially if you're from a larger state. So hopefully there's one that's nearby. And if not, feel free to contact Jessica or me or Ursula, and we're happy to talk with you about how to approach that if a drop-by visit is not possible. And the very last thing here before we move on to a fun little role play is it's really important for Ursula's work and the work of others here at FCNL working on these issues to report back to us. And again, I know there are a bunch of people on here who have filled out our report back form or sent us an email saying, hey, I stopped by Representative Smith's office. I gave them the leave behind. I actually got a chance to speak with Representative Smith, and he told me he supports this, but he wants this kind of information. That's the exact kind of thing that Ursula is able to see and then follow up with the staffers and say, hey, saw that you had a great meeting, saw that you had a question. I'm here to step in and fill in the policy details. So I really try and think about it as prepare before you go in, print your leave behind, know where you're going, know when you're going, try and work it into your schedule. During your visit, plan for a quick visit, but appreciate bonus time if you get it, take that opportunity, and then really focus on the back end of reporting back to FCNL and providing the office with a follow-up email or a follow-up call or a follow-up visit. It's always a good idea to follow up and say, hey, we had this discussion. I want to know where the congressman, where the congresswoman, where the senator stands on this issue. What can you tell me? And if they still aren't able to give you an answer, it just means another follow-up opportunity later on. So I'm going to pause for a second and bring Jessica back. I have not been looking at the chat, so if there's anything that we want to flag, we can take a moment.
And one quick comment, and the rule of thumb is that it takes about 5 touches or 5 follow-ups or 5 phone calls or 5 emails, to get their attention if they keep dismissing you. You are their constituents, right? So don't feel like you're bothering the offices. The congressman, the congresswoman works for you. So feel free to, send a follow-up email every couple of days until you get a response.
Yes, and I think one thing we're learning is as the congressional offices are continuing to reopen following COVID, they are interested in hearing from constituents, as I think some of us on this call can attest to. Having to be so tied to email and phone calls and text messages rather than some of that in-person communication. It's been really nice to get back to some of that. So we've heard from some staff people in district offices that they're looking forward to those events. And coming from Illinois, August is a great time to go out to the town festival, the county fair. Someone's probably eating a hot dog somewhere. They're at a craft fair. They're ready. They're waiting for you to go up and ask them a question. And they oftentimes, members of Congress and their staff, get questions that they don't want to answer. But in this case, this can be really straightforward. And as Jessica said, it gives you an opportunity to follow up with them and the office later on. So definitely be persistent. All right, we're going to have a few moments later on, not just for questions related to the policy with Ursula, but we can also answer some questions about kind of the action as well. But Jessica, back to you.
Great. So now we're going to do a fun little role play with Justin. And again, this will all be included in the follow-up. So we will provide a sample skip just to prepare you to engage your legislators, their staffers. So don't feel free to remember everything that we're saying, because you will get that in the email that I will send out tomorrow. So Justin, feel free to start.
So I have done my research. I've printed out my piece of paper. I have found Congressman Beyer here in Virginia. I found his closest office in Arlington. I have my newborn baby in my little sling ready to go and bring a future advocate into a congressional office. And Jessica is going to be our wonderful staff person doing her civic duty at the front desk. So hi, good afternoon. My name is Justin, and I'm a constituent of Congressman Beyer's. How are you doing today?
Good. Hi, Justin. Thanks for stopping by. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm visiting today, and I want to get right to it because I have my newborn with me, and I got to get going, but I really want to make sure that Congressman Beyer hears how much I think it's important to invest in peace. I'm concerned about government funding for peace building programs. I've read a little bit here and there. I'm really concerned about the war in Ukraine and all these conflicts popping up, and I want the federal government to do something. So what can Congressman Beyer do when it comes to peace building funding? Does he support it?
Thank you, Justin, again for stopping by. I'm not exactly sure about his position about that specifically. However, if you have any information, I am more than happy to share it to our policy team, and they can answer any questions that you might have regarding this specific issue.
Okay, that's fair. I understand. And thanks for asking. I do, in fact, have my sheet of paper, and their details are all listed here. So I'm hoping that you can share it with the congressman, share it with his team, his policy team. I actually wrote my contact information on the page too, because I'd really like to hear from the congressman's team where he stands on this, because it's so important to me.
Of course. Thank you so much. We'll be more than happy to contact you. Feel free to email us or call us at any time to make an appointment.
Wonderful. I'll definitely take you up on that, and I'll look forward to hearing from someone from your team.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Justin. I hope you have a great day.
I hope I do too. Thank you, Jessica.
And scene. So it's very easy, to engage your members of Congress office. Again, we will provide a sample script in the follow-up email. If this is your first time engaging your member of Congress, feel free to practice before visiting their office if that makes you feel more comfortable. But we will also be scheduling office hours with Ursala and myself to answer any questions or concerns that you might have. So then you can also feel prepared if you are planning to do a drop-by visit during the month of August. So with that, again, I've mentioned this several times as well as Justin and Ursala, but we just really want to reiterate that you will be obtaining all of this information tomorrow. And again, if you have any questions or would like more resources, or would you like to practice on how to engage their office, you can attend one of our office hours. And in that email that I will be sending, you'll see a link. But in the meantime, since we have a great turnout and there's power in numbers, I want all of us to take a quick action and send a quick email to your member of Congress. Some of you might have done this already, but if you haven't, this is an opportunity for you to take a digital action right here, right now. So what I will do is I will include a link in the chat box, and Justin will share his screen. One second. So if you click on the link that I just inserted in the chat box, it will take you to our website. You will see this orange box. Click on the Act Now button. And if you can, this will only take 1 minute. So just insert your name, your last name, your email address, as well as your street address. And then you will see a pre-generated email that will go to all of your members of Congress. So it should look something like this. So we'll give you a couple seconds to get to that page.
And Jessica, while people maybe take a look at that, they can always, if they aren't able to do it now, you can always go to fcnl.org/peacebuilding and do this later on or tomorrow. And we always like to tell folks, if you have the time, take a moment and edit these emails. I can go ahead and delete, and I can type in whatever I want to type in. It's really important to try and make your your email, your letter stand out. And you can do that by talking about, again, your values or why this issue is so important to you, what hats you wear in your community, as we like to say. If you're a member of a church or a meeting or a community group, or you have experience and you've met with staff or the congressperson before, go ahead and mention that and just personalize it. It really helps it stand out. And on issues like this, where offices might not hear a lot about something like this, the peace building funding, it can really help it get to the policy staffer and then hopefully the congressperson themselves.
Absolutely. And once you're done, you can also send this link to your friends, your families, have them sign the email, or also you can develop your own message, just like Justin mentioned, because we really want to make as much noise as possible. And if your member of Congress sees that their constituents are talking about the same issue, the likelihood for them to pay attention increases. So how many of you just took a digital action? Raise your hand. I see that a couple of you have done it. Okay, this is great. We will also be adding the link in the email that I'll be sending out. So you can also send that email tomorrow, or if you prefer to compose your own message, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So the next thing is we are having, we're hosting our August kickoff event on August 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And this is an opportunity for us to be in community, hear from other folks who have lobbied their members of Congress on peace building and other issues, hear from their experience. And then we will also have a special guest speaker from the White House talk about the importance of advocacy. So if you can join us, please do so. So we can get ready and, engage our members of Congress throughout the month of August and beyond. So that link will also be in the follow-up email that I will be sending out. And then, of course, the main thing is we want all of you to engage with the member of Congress throughout the August recess in whatever capacity you can. If you aren't able to go to their local office, call their office, email them, try to engage them in the best way that you can, because like Ursula said, this is the moment in which we can make noise around this particular issue. And it does take all of us to really make change. And we really appreciate your ongoing advocacy with FCNL and other organizations that you might be a part of, but we really couldn't do this without you. So we really appreciate all of your support and your ongoing advocacy with FCNL. So with that, I know that some of you had questions, maybe regarding the policy side or how to conduct a drop-by visit. So this is the space in which we can take questions or concerns that you might have.
Jessica?
Really quick, I'm so sorry to jump in. I saw Regina had her hand raised for a little bit, so I just wanted to get to Regina, and then from Milwaukee.
So sorry, I didn't drop my hand. I'm going to do that now. Beg your pardon.
No worries. Okay, Ravenna, back to you.
My question was in the chat, but it is, can you give us specific examples of where the programs have been successful in locations that help to heal communities and prevent forced migration?
Yeah, that's a great question. Ravenna, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. That's a great question. I don't know if I can provide a exact location where that's happened because the drivers of forced migration are so complicated. But I will say, right now, there's a lot of work going on, for example, in Sudan, in the Darfur region that borders Central African Republic, Sudan, and South Sudan. That receives money from these accounts that is really aiming to build sort of local level conflict prevention mechanisms that are called peace committees. And these committees are sort of local leaders who will receive reports of, oh, we've heard that there's conflict in one community, or we've heard that someone might be coming to steal our cattle, things like that. And then the peace committees members come together, talk about the issues, try to resolve them before any conflict, before any violence starts, and working with other neighboring communities. And by taking these kind of local actions, they're able to really help overall diffuse the tension and diffuse some of the violence. And they've been able to resolve peacefully more of the conflict or the risk reports they receive, if that's the easiest way to put it, then they've seen where those reports of potential conflict actually turn into conflict. And so by helping these communities feel safe, by helping these communities resolve their conflict, we're not seeing more communities feel that they need to seek shelter, that they need to leave their homes out of fear of violence and out of growing conflict. So it's hard to ever say exactly this thing did this in such a complex issue as violent conflict and forced migration. But we do see that where peace builders are working, oftentimes the triggers that cause that migration can be reduced, at least, that people feel safer to stay in their own communities. We've also seen an example in the Central African Republic, not to go back to the same area twice, but where the communities received long distance radios, shortwave radios, and are able to share when they hear of armed groups like the Lord's Resistance Army moving in their region. Before, it was very difficult to communicate between remote villages in a dense jungle area. And when there would be one attack on a village, the armed group could go to the next village and there would be no warning, or there would be very little warning. And through these shortwave radios, through these long distance radios, they're able to warn ahead and say, come in from the fields, protect your children, come into the community, protect yourselves. There is a dangerous group in the area. And that's really been able to also make people safer in their own homes, and you're able to do it non-violently. So those are a couple examples. I hope that's helpful to answering your question.
It's really a matter of dollar versus dollar. Do you spend dollars here, or why is it a better investment is really my question.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I will say the Institute of Economics and Peace, which is kind of a big data economics think tank, they found, they did, as I say, advanced research, and they found that for every dollar invested in conflict prevention and peace building, $16 were saved on the cost of conflict. So why spend money on peace building? It's going to be a better return on investment for the American taxpayer and for the communities. So when we say cost of conflict, that's not just the cost of the military, that's the cost of having to rebuild roads and bridges and homes that are destroyed. It's the lost economic opportunity when fields are burned, when markets are disrupted. So investing in peace saves, for every dollar we spend on this, we can save potentially $16 on the cost of conflict. And that's the Institute of Economics and Peace. And I'm trying to check the chat at the same time. Yes, and I saw Robin and someone else asked a similar question earlier, John in Colorado Springs. Yes, there are a lot of parallels between violence abroad and violence at home. You know, fundamentally, a lot of these issues, marginalization, inequality, they're not only one group's problems. Every society in the world experiences this, and ours is not alone in that. And there is a lot of work between quote unquote international and domestic peace builders and trying to share lessons learned, trying to share approaches. And FCNL also advocates and supports funding to violence interrupters here in the United States, to support some of this kind of work here at home as well, where it's also very needed.
Ben Bloom, I think you had a question.
My question is, concerns members of the House. As you know, the Republicans are far right-wingers, and our two members of Congress who are both Republicans are not philosophically on the same wavelength that we are. They are philosophically nowhere near us. How do you convince people who are that far right that what we are doing makes sense?
That's a great question, and I'm sure you're not alone on this call with having representatives who might think very differently than you. I think one, reminding them about the cost and about the return on investment, and letting them know that investing in peace building, investing in these nonviolent tools will save us in the cost of the instability and the conflict. And I think reminding them also about our shared values, that, you know, human life is important, and that where we can be supporting peace rather than allowing conflict to fester, I think is a shared value that most humans, I hope, share, regardless of political party. And then I think also, lastly, really, you know, we've seen that military intervention doesn't bring peace. Violence begets violence, conflict begets conflict. And these tools are so important because it is a peaceful solution to bring peace. And it is much more likely, if we are investing in these kind of tools, that we will have, you know, peace and stability around the world, that then in turn opens places and cultures that Americans can travel to. It opens trade, it opens economic opportunity for the US abroad. I hope that helps. And I see, Jonathan, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Just a little detailed question. You mentioned earlier that the Atrocities Prevention Program was currently funded. I think you said $6 million.
Yes.
Are the complex crisis funds and reconciliation programs, are they currently funded at any level? And I just wanted to know what that was.
No, that's absolutely fantastic question. So the Complex Crises Fund is currently at $60 million. Although as I said, the House proposal for the coming budget cuts that in half. The House is only offering $30 million, which is why your guys' advocacy is so critical at this moment, to push back against the idea of making cuts like that. And then reconciliation programs is currently funded at $25 million. And so we are really asking to increase all of these funds. The world is experiencing the highest number of armed conflicts that it has since World War II. We are seeing violence and instability around the world, and we need to be increasing these investments. So currently, yes, it's $6 million to atrocity prevention, $60 million to complex crises, and $25 million to reconciliation. And so we're asking to increase all of those.
Okay, and thank you. And the connection to earlier is that money spent in this will cut the overall budget, because we won't have to spend as much in other areas.
Exactly. And it also creates economic opportunities and new trade opportunities as countries can experience more peace. I know we're getting close to time, Jessica. I don't know.
Well, we'll take one more question. And again, we're going to have office hours, and you'll see that link in the follow-up email. And you can register to attend one of those if you have any more questions. But I see Kate, You have your hand raised.
A Zoom visit with one of our representatives last week, he implied that, despite the how awful the Republicans, proposal was, that going into the Senate, we might be optimistic. And so, just to help people understand, appreciate that in the past, like the House budget was at one place and the Senate budget came out a little higher for what our asks were.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are hoping, as we mentioned, the advocacy teams this year, if you're interested in doing advocacy with FCNL year round, definitely reach out. I think it's advocacyteams@fcnl.org. But the advocacy teams have been lobbying year round on this, and we're so excited to have the surge capacity of everyone else on this call in this critical moment when we're going to see the Senate proposal and they're going to have to start negotiating because the budget, the money runs out September 30th, and we need to be looking at a new budget for the fiscal year starting October 30th. So it's super urgent. I'm really excited that all of you guys are doing this advocacy with us. Join us for office hours. Feel free to also check out the email, which will have more resources following this that'll hopefully answer some more questions.
Yeah, like Ursula said, we really appreciate everything that you are doing. We couldn't do this without you. You're literally the backbone of our organization. So we really appreciate your advocacy. And if you have any questions in the meantime, I have inserted my email address in the chat box. So feel free to send me any questions that you have. Otherwise, we will see you at one of the office hours. And I hope that all of you can join us at the August kickoff event, which is August 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And that will also be in the email. It's going to be a fantastic kickoff event. And I hope that all of you can join us. So thank you so much. And we really, really appreciate your time and your ongoing support. We will be in touch.
Thank you so much.